he used to encourage that people don't just go home and leave their laptop, go home. Like he used to say that laptop should be a part of your body at that time. so he used to say that. And then I was spending like almost like till 1 a.m. in the office. We were sitting there, we were basically living there. So he was like a family member there.
FreeCodeCamp podcast. I'm Quincy Larson, teacher and founder of freeCodeCamp.org. Each week, we're bringing you insight from developers, founders, and ambitious people getting into tech. This week, we're talking with Kamran Ahmed. He's a software engineer and founder of Roadmap.sh, which has skill tree roadmaps for lots of developer fields such as DevOps. As a teacher, he is also a Google developer expert and a GitHub Star. Kamran, it's a pleasure to have you here, man.
Thank you for having me, Quincy.
Yeah, and I'm a longtime fan of yours and of Roadmap.sh. I've written articles about how cool these visual roadmaps of different skills you should acquire as a developer, like depending on which fields you want to go into. These are super useful. So
I'm a big fan of FreeCodeCamp as well. I mean, I came across it a long time ago, like after 1 year of launching Roadmap, and I came across by a comment on Reddit. Someone mentioned that go take a roadmap from Roadmap.sh and learn from FreeCodeCamp. It's good that I came across it later. Otherwise, I might not have launched Roadmap. I mean, FreeCodeCamp was already there. It was a good enough resource. I didn't know that there is something like that, like FreeCodeCamp.
Yeah, well, thank you. I feel very honored that you know about FreeCodeCamp, that you saw value in it, and yeah. FreeCodeCamp, of course, being a big work in progress. FreeCodeCamp just focusing on a few key skills with our core curriculum. Roadmap.sh has a broad category of different careers that you can, potentially pursue. Right? You've got how many different career specializations do you have represented with Roadmap?
So we have two types of roadmaps: role-based and skill-based. In total, we have around 55. I don't know the exact number of the role-based and skill-based, but total 55.
Okay, so at least probably 20 or so different developer careers. Can you give some examples of some careers that people might pursue?
Front-end, back-end, DevOps, full-stack, QA, UX designer, cybersecurity, product management, DevRel, technical writing, and there are many others as well. So, but these are off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's amazing. There's just a wide variety of different fields people can go into with their coding skills. And some of those skills that some of those fields you mentioned are very multidisciplinary as well, like technical writing or like user experience design, that bring in, potentially like, cognitive psychology, that bring in research methodology, like all kinds of different exciting stuff. So the thing that I guess one of the big messages that I have for people who are considering, a career in 2024, 2025 is think about what you can do with those coding skills. Coding is a skill. It's not a career in itself. It's one of many skills that you will need to succeed as a software engineer, as a designer, as a mechanical engineer or an electrical engineer, or working with AI systems. Even a lot of people in government should probably learn how to build systems because they have to help figure out how to regulate them, for example. So I love that you've got these detailed progressions of skills, and you've kind of thought about dependencies, right? You've thought about like what the prerequisites should be for doing things. Can you talk about Roadmap? And anybody who hasn't been there before, you can of course go to roadmap.sh and you can check out what these look like. But they look kind of like those balsamic markups, like you used to be able to make mocks. I guess Balsamic's probably still around. You can make mocks. A lot of people use Figma now, but it's like nice little boxes and arrows and things like that, almost kind of like UML or something like that, where you're like pointing to relationships between different things and forking paths and things like that.
So yeah, Roadmap provides a learning path for developers. So this is the tagline, learning path for developers. So we are a community-driven project 55 plus roadmaps we have already. There are two types of roadmaps, role-based and skill-based. Role-based, for example, if you want to become a front-end developer, back-end developer, DevOps, or whatever role do you want to take, what are the steps you can take? What are the skills that you should acquire? What are the things that you should learn? So this is the path, the visual hierarchy of different steps. And the second thing we have is also when you click a node, we give you the resources. So we might be linking to freeCodeCamp videos that you might have there, some external free courses on YouTube, free books. So we have a lot of free resources in the roadmap. So we don't just give you a path, we also link to the external resources to help you go and pick them up on the internet. So this is the roadmap part. The next thing we launched recently is the projects. So mostly learning just by reading or watching a tutorial is not enough. You need to build a lot of projects. So we started adding projects to most of our roadmaps. So we started with the most famous roadmaps. Backend roadmap is done. So we have around 22 projects in there. So when you're learning, go and do the beginner specific project first, then do the intermediate projects and then the senior ones. And then we also have the community submissions in there. So you can go and check like how someone else solved this problem. So if you get stuck, you can get the idea from there. Yesterday we launched the front-end project. So this is also there. Apart from this, we also have guides. From time to time, we write a lot of technical articles as well. We have some YouTube videos as well. And we have questions. So we have 6 questions so far at the moment. Like, let's say that you are a front-end developer. You need to test yourself how good you are at front-end. So you can go and answer the question and see if you know it properly or no. So yeah, in a nutshell, this is that. The next thing we have is also login and registration. So you can log in. So while you're following a roadmap, you can track your progress in there, interact with other developers who are learning the same thing. Apart from this, you also have a public profile, so you can share your kind of a resume with other like potential employers or anyone to see that I'm learning this. So this is what my expertise look like in the front end, back end, or DevOps or whatever it is. So that's also there. And then we also have teams that we recently launched. So teams can also use roadmaps for their internal employees as well to track their progress and stuff.
Awesome. Wow. You're building on a lot of stuff that is like, I can imagine it being super useful. Like we have people all the time who are like, hey, how can our team use freeCodeCamp? And we're like, eventually we'll have a public API that you can use, or we'll have like some sort of enterprise solution or whatever. But like that's on our literal roadmap. But it seems like you're just going out and you're doing these things. So that's very impressive. I want to delve a little bit into the fact that this is an open source project, right? Like you created this, you put everything out there, everything's free as far as I can tell. Like I've never seen like any sort of like pay for roadmap. Like everything is just freely out there and people can just grab this and use it. And your open source projects are incredibly well received by the developer community. You have, I think, some of the biggest projects on GitHub in terms of like, I think I read that you had more than 1,000 contributors to these over open source?
Yeah, on Roadmap alone, we have more than 1,000 contributors in total. Yeah, so in terms of number of stars on my GitHub projects, I am the second person on GitHub with most stars. And yeah, I have like some quite famous, like for example, there's driver.js, which has been downloaded by 2.5 million users. It has like 60,000 downloads per week. And then I have similar design patterns for humans, which is a textual guide with almost 45,000 stars. And some other like more than 15,000 stars on each.
Wow. So you're doing a lot of stuff beyond just roadmap, like the design patterns for humans. Sounds like so it's like kind of like a book on GitHub, or
yeah. So it is just a big markdown file. So it was supposed to be a book on the side, but I decided to put it on GitHub. So it's just a big markdown file with examples and textual descriptions of design patterns.
Awesome. I'm going to link to that in the description as well, because a lot of people ask me all the time, like, how can I learn design patterns? So I added that to my notes for the show notes. By the way, everybody listening, if you're watching on YouTube, of course, we've got the video description. I'll have a lot of information there. If you're listening to the RSS feed like I do on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening, your podcast tool of choice, be sure to check out the show notes there as well. So we'll have lots of helpful links there. So Kamran, I want to dive into your background first, because you have a very unique, like, international background. You're like an international man of mystery, traveling around, working in all these different countries and all these different cultures. My understanding is you're originally from Pakistan, and that you've just kind of branched out from there across Asia and Europe. Can you talk about your career progression? Maybe we can even go back to like your early days and how you got interested in programming and technology.
So I had my first computer around, I think, when I was 9-10 years old, but it was not for programming. It was mostly gaming. My father had it, so I was just using it for playing games and stuff. Programming, I never tried programming at all. I was doing some kind of design work and stuff before, so just as an experiment for fun. I started with programming around 2010, so when I got the admission in the university in software engineering. So my graduation year was from 2010 to 2014. I graduated in software engineering. But it was a small university back in a small city in Pakistan called Faisalabad. I still consider myself to be self-taught because the curriculum there was pretty outdated. They don't train you to be like how to get a job or how do you go out and what do you need to work on and so on. So this was my graduation year. I started with open source around 2012, 11, 12. We'll get into that later. But yeah, so I got into that at that time. And then my first job was around 2013 when I was in 6th semester. So it was summer break. I decided to just print out resumes, like 50 copies of my resume. And I was learning a lot of different things. I had HTML, CSS, JavaScript. I had that. I was learning about game development at that time, Unity 3D. I learned about C#, graphics designing. So whatever I could think of, I was just doing and I was learning because there was no one to teach me like what you should be doing after you graduate. So I had this big 3-page resume. Imagine if you're just a fresh, you haven't graduated yet and you have this 3-page resume. So I had this 3-page resume. I printed 50 copies of it and then I opened Google Map and searched software companies in Faisalabad. I took my bike out and then I went to all these companies and then I decided to drop my resumes there one by one. Most of them just said that put your resume here, we'll get back to you if we have an opening. One small company, there were like 3 or 4 people sitting in a small room in there. So they decided to interview me. And then they asked me, like, what do you know? I tell them everything that I know about C#, SQL, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, or whatever. They were mainly interested in the web design. So they said that we are building this they were building this business management application, a web version of their desktop application. So they used to have a desktop application which they used to provide to local companies for managing their business, like payroll, inventory, and things like that. So they were building the web application for this desktop application because desktop application had a lot of issues. So they have to go and send someone if there is some issue to check the app or install the necessary requirements on their PCs and so on. So they said that we are working on this. Can you help with this? I said, yes, I can work on this. I have some experience with HTML, CSS, jQuery, and Bootstrap. So they said that our boss is not here. Go back home and then we'll call you back if there's a match. So the next day they reached out to me. They called me and they said that you have got a job. Come to the office from tomorrow. So
so you brute force you use the brute force algorithm to go out and just get yourself out there like anybody that would take your resume, and finally you found somebody that would give you a job.
Yeah, because I didn't know like how to find a job. I knew that there are software companies where developers work. So I said Google search software companies in Faisalabad, my hometown. So that's how I found the first job. So I got the job and then I asked them like how much are you going to pay me? They said that we'll not pay you anything because you don't have any experience, but we'll see if you are good. Then we'll give you we'll start paying you salary and so on. I said I had nothing to lose. My main point was to get experience from this job. So I will join them. So the next day I started working with them. They put me into this project, this web application that I told you about, this business management application with this person. And I started working with him on this application. So he was a backend developer. He did not have much experience with frontend because I was doing everything. So he said that work on with me on this one with the responsiveness. So I have these forms. Can you make them responsive in Bootstrap? So I started working on the responsiveness with him. And then after a week, he decided to leave the company. He just ghosted them. He was not picking up their calls, and then he was not even coming to the office.
Wow. So don't ever do that, by the way. That's not chill. So there was immediately a vacuum. I'm sensing a vacuum that could be filled by a young Kamran.
Yeah, there was a vacuum there, and they needed someone to fill. They could not find someone so fast because it was a small company, 3-4 people, and this was a project that was also not live yet, so they were not making any money from it. So they didn't want to spend money on hiring someone, and then if they not end up being good, they'll be just wasting money. They need to train them and so on. So they said that because this is just a non-critical project that we are doing on the side, can you pick it up? And I did not work with ASP.NET at that time. I worked with C#, the form application, the desktop applications. For a moment, I was a bit scared. I thought this is like a huge undertaking. I'm not sure I'll be able to do it. I thought maybe I said yes to them, and tomorrow I will just like this guy leave the company. I'll not come again to them. So, but then I thought, they're not paying me, right? So why not just I do it with them? And if I'm able to do it, it's fine. If not, that's fine also. They're not paying me anyways, right? So I decided to start working on them, but this was done in .NET. I did not have any experience. I tried to convince them and say that I know about PHP and CodeIgniter at that time. So I said, let me work on CodeIgniter and I can build it with PHP. They said that no, our desktop applications are VB.NET, and we're using SQL Server. So we'll be able to use the queries, like database queries and everything, because they had a lot of complex reporting and stuff, like data stuff in there.
Yeah.
So they said that I don't have experience with MySQL or PHP, so we'll not be able to do it. VB.NET, we have some experience with .NET and SQL Server, so we can do it. So let's stick with with ASP.NET. I said fine. I started working on this, and then it was not sticking in my mind. I was not sure how could I, because I was still new, right? I did not have any experience. I did not know how to learn. I was just learning by reading books or watching videos and stuff. So I said yes to them. I started working with them. In the company, I would work on ASP. I would go home and I would work on the same application with PHP and CodeIgniter. After a week or so, I came back and I told them that I'm done with PHP. So this is the application that's almost done with the same feature set in PHP. So what do you think if I keep working on this, because I can be fast with this, not with C#, not with ASP.NET, and we can go live with this, and I can promise having good quality and stuff. So they took it, they tested it, and it was working fine for them, and then they said that's fine, continue with PHP. So that's how I convinced them to do PHP, and then I kept working on this project.
Interesting. So kind of like almost an ask for forgiveness, not permission type approach, where like, look, I just instead of learning this proprietary, expensive ecosystem of tools, Microsoft tools, which are not free, like PHP. PHP is completely open source. Now, technically, C# is open source and everything like that, but I guess nowadays you can probably do most of what you need without like expensive licenses and stuff. But PHP is very popular precisely because it's an open source tool that is ubiquitous. Anybody can pick it up and use it. That's why Facebook was originally written in PHP. WordPress, lots of different, big projects written in PHP. So this is very interesting to me because I always tell people just take the job and learn what you need to learn. But you were like so, I guess, stubborn, for lack of a better word, and I mean that in a positive way, that you're like, no, PHP really is better for this purpose, and I know it, and I can move faster, and you were able to basically pressure them, like convince them, sell them on letting you switch stacks. That's a huge accomplishment. You're an unpaid intern at this point, essentially.
Yeah.
And for the unpaid intern to wield that power is very impressive because it shows that you must have built an impressive app and you must have been very good at selling it to them.
So yeah, I was good with design and stuff. So at that time I was doing, as I said before, I was doing Photoshop and I was learning about design and stuff. So they had the design. They did not know about PHP, so they looked at the Outlook, like the user experience side of the things. Later on, I could do SQL injection easily on that. So like it was live for 1 or 2 years. After leaving the job as well, it was like it had a lot of bugs and stuff, but I was able to convince them. So I kept working on this, and then they started my salary after 2 months. They said that we are convinced, we'll give you this much per month. It was a very small amount, like it was 10,000 Pakistani rupees, which is like nothing. I think it would be $10 or something per month. So which was almost nothing at that time. But again, I kept on working because I was not looking at the money. I was looking at how I can gain experience, how I can learn, and preparing for myself for the future job. So once I graduate, what would be my first job like? So I was preparing myself for that, not for this job.
Yeah.
So I kept working with them, kept on working on my skills, kept on working on the database and this and that. So everything that I was learning. So before I was watching tutorials to learn this. So now I had this real world project that I was practicing on. And then there were bugs. For example, they after 6 months or so, we launched it. They got their first customer on a discounted price because they said that we have this desktop application which charges you this much per month. If you need this one, we'll charge you like half of that. In return, you need to help us improve it because this is a pilot project. This is the initial launch that we have. And then, because people were using this platform, they were giving them feedback. They were coming to me and say like, this is a bug, that is a bug, or fix this or fix that, and so on. So that's how I was getting the real world experience into working on this project. And then there was a lot of math involved. It was complicated. There were a reporting section which was super complicated. I know there was one report, I forgot the name. There used to be credit and debits, and at the report bottom it should have matched. So for report and everything to be working properly, the left side value should match on the right side. Like sum of credits should match the sum of debits, and I was not able to make it work. So foolishly, I just put the hard-coded value. So whatever is loaded on the left side, I would put the same value on the right side.
Wow.
So I made these foolish
dirty
mistakes
hacks.
there.
Yeah. I hope nobody got sued for financial fraud or something as a result of using your tool.
Yeah, I was naive. I didn't know anything right at the moment. So, but I mean, they gave the feedback. I mean, they found out like this is a hacky thing. They had a QA team which was working on testing this properly. They were proper like people who were like good in math and stuff. So I fixed it. I mean, I was learning from all these mistakes that I was doing there. Then they also put me with this customer that took this project. So I would go to him and see like what are the issues that he's having. If he needs training, I would give them training and stuff. So this one job, like I stayed with them for 1 year. In this 1 year, I'd learned a lot about programming, about the communication with the customers, like getting the requirements, not promising anything, and so on, like not building features for just one customer. Think about like what other customers are using this platform as well. So this taught me a lot from the product side, from design side, from development side, databases, everything. So this was my first job. I graduated in 2014. I said that I have found a better job. So this was like one of the top 10 companies in Pakistan, in Lahore, the next city.
Yeah, Lahore's big city.
Yeah, they're bigger, much bigger than Faisalabad, like 2-3 times. So
Yeah.
I was applying. I knew that this is like a tech hub there. So I was only searching for jobs in Lahore. So I was searching for top companies in Lahore, top software companies in Lahore, and I would start applying. So near the end of my graduation, because I knew that this is small, there's like 3-4 small companies. I will not be able to get the same experience. So I started applying. I found this company called Strategic System International. So this was a service-based company. They had like 500 employees, I think, at that time. I sent my resume. They said, come for the interview. I went there for the interview. The building was super big. I was used to the small room, and this was like 100-room building, like super big, like with glass doors and proper offices. It looked professional, like people were wearing these cards and stuff. So it was like proper office.
Okay. So I just want to step back in contrast because there's a lot to break down here. First of all, 10,000 rupees a month or a week?
A month, yeah.
A month. Okay.
Yeah.
That's $35 US. So a lot of people spend $35 US just on having a cell phone or something in the US. So that is not a lot to live off of. Granted, I guess the cost of living is probably a little bit lower in your hometown, but to go from a room full of people, like in a room on computers, 4 people, right, writing software, to go from that to this giant company that has like security badges and has like a big office in the big city. That must have been a huge life change. Had you ever lived in a city that big before?
I had never lived in a hostel before. I was living with my parents. I would go to university, go to office, come back. So this was my life mostly. Like there was no, like I never even moved out alone from the city. Yeah. But I was determined that I need to find a better job, right? I need to get somewhere. I can't be just in the same build, I graduated also, like I was super interested in software engineering. Like I got the interest after, like I got the admission. And I got the admission from this one professor. Like this one professor, he was working as a software engineer. He came to the university and he did not have even the educational experience. It was our database systems class. And then he gave us the project. So he was not only teaching databases, he said that build this application with the database. So he was giving us practical real world projects. So from this experience, I got the idea of and so on. So I knew that I want to do something and I can't do it here. I need to move out of the hometown. So that's why, like I started applying, I got this first job in Lahore.
Yeah. Awesome.
So I moved there. I gave the interview. They hired me for 45,000 rupees at that time.
45,000 rupees. I'm gonna translate that. So of course there's probably been some inflation and stuff. 45,000 rupees. So it's about 4.5 times as many. 45,000 rupees. Yeah, it's about $500, $550 a month, which is a lot more.
No, 45,000 is not 500.
45,000? Okay, well Google is
45,000.
45,000. Oh, it's 154. I'm sorry. I don't know why it was. Okay, maybe it was human error. So $150 a month.
Yeah.
Right. Like you couldn't live on that in the U.S. Like, so
you couldn't live in Pakistan as well.
And you were living in, like you said, like hostel or like work dormitory type thing.
this was supposed to be like, if I move, I need to live in a hostel or some accommodation. I need to find it myself. This money is also not huge there. Like, but at that time, like inflation and everything was a bit different. Like $1 was used to be like $1 used to be 100 rupees at that time.
Okay.
Now it's a completely different story.
Okay.
So yeah, I decided to take it. I asked them for 75,000 rupees, just because my professor told me that you should ask for more. You should not ask. So I was getting like, they promoted me, like I was taking 10,000, they made it 35,000 towards the end of my university days. So I was 35,000, so I decided to ask for a double. So I said that I'll ask for 75, and then I'll go down and find maybe settle at 60, 65 or something. So I asked for this much, and then they said that we like you and so on. We'll get in touch with you. But they ghosted me. They didn't reply to me at all after I gave the interview at this company. But I reached out to this guy. Like, there was one guy who was from my university. He was working there as a lead developer. So I sent him a message. Like, he was my interviewer. So I sent him a message. I said that you were saying to me that you like me and you're looking forward to work with me and so on. And now I didn't hear from you at all. So he said to me that you are a fresh graduate and then you have just one product experience. You don't have good experience, and they can't afford this much for a fresh graduate. So because they don't know, like, how are you going to perform and so on. So I said, like, how much are you going to pay me? They said that we don't know. Like, tell us what do you want? Like, what is the minimum you can go? I said that I'm taking 45. I was taking 35. I said I don't want to go like on the same amount. So I said I'm taking 45. Give me 45. I'll come on the 45. They said fine. We'll give you 45. So I decided to go on 45,000 Pakistani rupees there.
Interesting. So first of all, this is a kind of a cautionary tale because, like, you hear from, like, for example, we had Rahul Pandey on the show. He's like, you should always try to negotiate your compensation. Hasib Qureshi, who has published very popular guides to salary negotiation on FreeCodeCamp over the past few years. They will always say you should always negotiate your compensation, try to negotiate it higher. But this is like one instance where negotiating a salary too high caused them to ghost you. But you were able to go use your network, your connections, to basically get some inside information. Okay, what was it that caused you to ghost me? Okay, and then you were able to kind of course correct. So in a way, like, you recovered from that, I guess, penalty that they placed on you attempting to negotiate your salary.
Yeah. So they used to hire, also one of the reasons for not paying this much, the amount that I asked for, because they used to hire from really big universities. So LUMS is like one of the top universities in Pakistan. Internationally also, there was LUMS, there was NUS. So there's super big universities there. They mostly used to hire from there. And GC University was like, my university was a super unknown university from the small town. So they didn't want to take risk with me. So that's why the other reason that they ghosted me. So
this is an interesting point too. If you don't mind me, like, just talking about this a little bit more. In Pakistan, just like in the U.S., just like in a lot of countries, like I've heard it's like this in India as well, and employers are lazy and they're risk averse. So they go to college career fairs at Stanford and MIT and places where all the good developers are, and then they completely ignore somebody like Kamran, who turns out he's like an incredible developer, but he just doesn't have the pedigree. So if you are an employer and you are looking for good software engineers, don't go to the Stanford, career fair. Go to the career fair in, like, Ohio at, like, the small university, or go to, like, the hackathon in the middle of Michigan or something like that, and find the talented developers there. If you look a little bit more where other people aren't looking, there's much less competition, and you're much more likely to be able to get good software engineers. At any point, some industrious manager in Pakistan could have found Kamran and brought him on to their team, and so they just completely overlooked your obvious talent. Well, it's easy looking in hindsight to say, oh, it was a mistake for all the people that passed on you to pass, right? And many of the people listening to this who are now working as experienced software engineers, senior engineers, tech leads, they can probably relate that, like, well, they if only they could have seen where I am now, they would feel really dumb for having passed over me. But that's just the nature of employers. They're risk averse, and as a result, they're going to skip over diamonds in the rough, like Kamran.
Yeah, I don't think you should look at the university or like our past experience and stuff. You should also look at, like, the passion that he has, like what kind of project is he doing. And if they look at me, like I was trying GitHub and I was trying to do this and that, and I was working on this company with as a single web developer and stuff. If they looked at all these things also and forgot about just the university, and they might have hired me. So yeah, I mean, employers look at this from one aspect and they forget about the other things. It should be not the same. So yeah, so this company, I got the job. I decided to join them. He was able to negotiate for me, and then they gave me this 45,000 rupees, and then I decided to join them. I moved there. I started working with them. It was a service-based company. They used to work with their clients were mostly US-based. So I worked on a small, not a small, like super big scale software called Healthcare Business Insights. It used to be called Healthcare Business Insights. Like it was for hospitals and this kind of stuff. It was quite famous in the US, like used by hospitals.
Healthcare Business Insights. Okay, yeah. And that's a huge industry. The healthcare in the US is like a multi-trillion-dollar industry. So there's so much money sloshing around. And of course, they're going to pay for software that makes their physicians more productive, that makes it easier for them to track patient records and things like that. So, and of course, like in the early 2000s, there was this kind of like offshoring craze where they were really like US companies were like, U.S. developers are really inexpensive. Let's go get some Pakistan developers, right? So your employer was one of the companies that was riding that boom.
Yeah. So they were working on this project for almost like 3-4 years. Like they started the project and they were working with them. At the moment I joined them, this was built with, I think, Yi 2. Yi, it was a PHP framework which was quite famous at that time. It was built with that, and they were trying to migrate to Laravel at that time. Yeah. And Laravel was also quite new at that time. I think it was Laravel 2 or 3. I don't remember what version was it, but it was still quite new at that time. Now it is super famous.
Okay. So you got an opportunity to learn Laravel, now the most dominant PHP framework probably.
Yep.
One of them for sure. In its early infancy, and you got to do this on the job. You actually had an employer paying you to learn this.
Yeah. So yeah, I watched some of the tutorial, but I didn't know much about Laravel. I did not work on any projects and so on. But this one, like from CodeIgniter, so this was like a good opportunity for me to learn. So they were doing the refactoring, and I got to work on this at that time. They gave me just one module. So there were several modules, like 10, 15 modules at that time. I got to work on reporting because I had some experience with data and databases. And I also got to work on the event module, which was super complicated, similar to Google events. Like you invite people, you set up the recurring events and stuff like that. So I got to work on these two projects, and I learned a lot there. So they put me into this project. After this, because it was a service-based company, they were getting a lot of projects from outside. There was another one called Academic Approach. So I got to work on this. It was for use for SAT and this kind of preparation for tests, the entry-level tests for different universities and stuff.
SAT, as we call it in the States. We say SAT, we don't say SAT. But basically the standardized exam for anybody listening to this outside of the U.S. that most Americans take if they want to attend university. The other one being the ACT. But yes, please continue. I also like to describe acronyms as they come up.
So this was also quite an interesting project because they were building it for parents and students and teachers. So it had complex reporting and quizzes, and also like ebooks in there. So it was super complicated, quite big project. So I got to work on this, and then there were also some mobile applications that came. I got to work on them. Then there was one ASP.NET application I got to work on. So there were like different applications that I got to work with them in 1 year and a half. I was with them for a year and a half. And then at that time, I was getting into open source. Before that, it was mostly like I was putting my university assignments and this kind of stuff from my university days. But there, I thought that maybe I should work on different projects like libraries or plugins and this kind of stuff. So I was trying things like I built this PHP library called PHP Geocode. So what this library does was, it was a PHP library. It was a PHP class you can put in your code base. You give it the address, any address. It will use the Google's geocoding API, and it will give you the city, country, time zone, latitude, longitude, and this kind of stuff from the address.
Great.
So I just built this because it seemed interesting. And then I decided to put it on Reddit, like different subreddits, and like learn programming, coding, and different places. And I just posted it and said that if you have any feedback, give it to me. And I didn't ask for feedback. I just posted it. I built this. Have a look. So people are like on Reddit are mostly like they are quick to give feedback, and they're really harsh with feedback because they're mostly experienced and stuff. So people are
there's this old saying. There's this old saying. The fastest way to get an answer on the internet is to post a wrong answer because people will come and correct you, or post a project where you didn't use the best practices or something, and then people will come in and harshly condemn your usage of suboptimal coding practices and things like that. And you can learn a great deal from that. That's the whole learning public. Like, put yourself out there. And I just want to highlight the fact that, like, early on as a developer, like, this was probably way before you would ultimately create Roadmap.sh and some of your other big open source projects, but you were already benefiting from your willingness to put yourself out there. This gumption, this can-do attitude that served you when you're riding your bike around your hometown with a big stack of resumes, and now you're entering into the global arena of open source and putting your code up there for all the neckbeards, the chin-stroking neckbeards, to scrutinize and criticize from their we call it like the armchair quarterbacks, all the people that are sitting on the couch that are like, what the hell is this? Did you learn a lot from their feedback?
It wasn't easy. Like, I put it there, like in the comments, people were bashing me. Like, what is this? You have this PHP file. At that time, it used to be PHP 4. PHP 5 was still picking up. PHP 5 was the one that introduced object-oriented programming and classes and stuff. It was not like old at that time. So I did not have much experience with proper object-oriented programming. So it was just one class. At that time, like, people used to say that there was no notion of functional programming as much. So it was not as common. It used to be object-oriented programming, and object-oriented programming was also hardcore. Like, if it is not super messy and super complicated, it doesn't look over-engineered, then it's not good. So this used to be that era, like early days. So I put it there. It was one PHP class, geocode, a lot of functions in there. And in the README, I was like, it was this one paragraph with one code example saying that do this to get the details. People were bashing me like, what is this? What kind of code have you written? There is this geocoder PHP which is super famous. Why would we not use this? And why would we use this over that? And so on. I just left it. I didn't reply to them. Like, they're bashing me in there. I thought that maybe I should delete the post, and then I was getting some stars from there as well, so I thought I'll just leave it there. I don't look at the comments, and I'll just get the stars from there.
Stars, for anybody who's unfamiliar with GitHub Stars, this is a very important part of Kamran's journey. Stars are essentially like likes on GitHub, but it's not like a like on like some random post on Facebook where you're like, yeah, look how many likes I got this month. It's like permanently there. It's like somebody's bookmarking that project to come back to it, and accumulating a lot of stars, which you've done quite a bit of. You're the second most starred user on GitHub, right? That is basically like people tacitly endorsing your project and saying this project is useful, this project is noteworthy. So yeah, I can see why like there are people in the comments saying negative things, but for every person saying something negative in the comments, there might be several people that are starring it and thinking it's genuinely useful, right? Not everybody comments when they find something useful.
Yep. So yeah, I was also super young at that time. I don't know, like 19, 20 maybe at that time. So it used to be social media era. Like in the university days, students are mostly active on Facebook, like posting a picture, getting likes and this kind of stuff. So I was treating GitHub like that. You post a project, you get likes. So this is the goal. I post the project, get likes, and put it on your resume that you have this many likes and so on. So I put it there. Mostly comments were negative, but there was one guy who decided to open a pull request. And this one pull request changed my whole outlook of like what I think about GitHub and open source in general. So I still have this pull request somewhere lying around in my history. So he opened the pull request, he refactored the code fully, he changed everything in the code base, he updated the README fully, like he added the proper code examples, he added the proper markdown format, and so on. My README used to be like some HTML, some markdown, so it was a mix of like really bad markdown. So he did that. He wrote the test cases for the project. He added linting and code sniffing and badges in the README. So he made it super polished with this one pull request. And this pull request, it taught me a lot more than I could learn at my company, I could learn at my university or my previous jobs. So from this pull request, I got to know about object-oriented programming, code linting, sniffing, and so on. And from there on, like every next project that I was doing, I was learning, like I was taking this experience into that project. And then I decided to take it more seriously. I decided to build projects. I was putting it out there, and then not for the stars, but for the sake of learning, getting feedback, and so on. My next famous project was jQuery Toast plugin. Now it has like I think 1,200 stars on GitHub, but at that time it used to be like 20, 30 stars. It was done to get experience with jQuery. After that, like I just kept doing like on the side, apart from my job, I would come home, I would work on some project. That's when I started doing the side projects. Like I always have a side project. I was working on them just to get experience. So yeah, this was my job there at Lahore for almost 1 year and a half. I was sitting on LinkedIn one day and I was thinking that I should move out of Lahore. There's also service-based companies. They are not super good at what they do. They're focused on just delivering things, and there's a variety of projects. There's not much focus on building one product and doing it well from everything, like doing it in a modern way and so on. So I started applying for jobs. I was aiming for Germany at that time because Germany used to be like, I did not know about US and so on, that it is that common like IT there. But Germany, I knew a friend who went there. So I knew that he went from here, so maybe there's a way that I can go there as well. So I started applying for jobs in Germany. Like I applied to a lot of jobs, like almost like 100, 200 jobs there. I used to get interviews. They would take interview and then they would just reject me because I did not have experience. And I gave a lot of interviews. I didn't get the job. I was applying also for Dubai. So one day I was sitting on LinkedIn and I saw a post from a guy posted that we are looking for Node.js developers who could work with us in this platform. So they were building a travel platform for booking flights, hotels, and packages and stuff. So I sent him a message. I said, I don't know about Node.js. I know about PHP, and I have this much like projects on my open source profile. Would you be open to having a call with me, and then we can discuss? Here is my blog, and here is my GitHub. I can learn. I'm a super fast learner, and so on. Would you be open to having a call with me? He replied to me that let's schedule some time and let's have a call. So he decided to give me the opportunity, and then I had a call with him. Over the call, we discussed. He asked me about the PHP because he was also a PHP developer. He was trying to build this with Node.js because Node.js was like at that time there was IO.js and Node.js. It was super hyped at that time. Node.js. It was quite new, 2014, 15.
And I just want to say, first of all, earlier you mentioned Dubai, often called just Dubai by American English. So I just want to make sure that people know that was the place you were mentioning. Second thing I want to mention is Node.js, very hyped at the time, but absolutely ubiquitous now. Like freeCodeCamp runs on Node.js. Like Node.js has really taken over kind of like full stack JavaScript. Like it's an instrumental part of that. And there, of course, is a successor project called Dino that I run the subreddit for. But it hasn't caught on like Node.js. Like Node.js is just incredibly sticky and like tons of huge corporations. LinkedIn uses it, Walmart uses it, PayPal uses it. Of course, freeCodeCamp uses it extensively for most of our APIs and things like that. Sorry, I didn't want to derail you, but I just wanted to say, like at the time, Node.js is probably impossible to imagine how instrumental Node.js became to the web at this point. But you were right there in the early days, and you were one of the first devs to take a crack at really learning it and using it.
Yeah, it used to be HTML, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery, PHP, and AngularJS. There was also like some frameworks, JavaScript frameworks, but they were not as famous, like Sanchat and all this. But yeah, there was mainly front-end used to be jQuery, Bootstrap, and backend used to be PHP. Node.js was getting it was coming in the market at that time. There were not many tutorials out there. Like most of the people were like showing you how to build the IO application that you can't do with like IO heavy applications that you can't do easily with PHP, like chat applications and things like that. So my I had done some experiments with Node.js. Like I built a chatting application, like chat server with Node.js at that time, but I did not know much. So we had the interview. As I said, like he was also a PHP developer who was trying to build this with Node.js. And then he said that I know also PHP. We have some projects in PHP. Let's do the call. And then they decided to give me a job. He liked my blog and stuff. And then he said that, fine, we'll give you a job. So he gave me the offer. This offer was 13,000 dirham at that time. 13,000 dirham at that time was almost like $4,000-5,000 per month. I was making at that time, they gave me a bump. I was making 75,000 rupees at that time. So this was a huge salary bump. So at the moment, I thought that this is a scam. So they're giving me this much salary, almost like 3-4 times bigger than my current salary. They don't have a website.
Yeah.
So maybe they just want to get me there or whatever. I'm not sure
take
what
your
will they
passport and exploit you. Very common, unfortunately. In a lot of countries, a lot of talented people travel abroad, and next thing you know, they're in like a pig slaughtering scam or something like that, right? But this predated all that. This was just, but I mean, that's a substantial bump in compensation. Yep. Part of it, I think, so it was a real opportunity. You were suspicious, but it actually proved to be. Did it prove to be real?
Yeah, so I asked for 7,500 dirhams. They gave me 13,000 dirhams. Gave me more than what I was asking for. This video. So yeah, I at first I was just coming up with excuses. I thought I should not go because I am fine here. There's a super big company that I'm working at, and so on. So I thought I should stay here. So I was just asking them foolish questions. Would you pay me for the accommodation? Would you be paying for this? Would you paying for my health insurance? Would you paying for my ticket back home? And so on. So I was just coming up with these excuses just to say no to them. So they were able to convince me, and now my father was also saying to me that don't go. It also doesn't look like legit because they don't have a website, they don't have anyone on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Because it used to be like 3-4 people at that time. I gave it a lot of thought, and then I just decided to give it a go. I thought that what is the worst that can happen? I'm single, I can go, I can find my way there. So I said yes to them, and I decided to go. It was a small company, not that small. It was a small warehouse where they were sitting. There were like 20 people at that time in this company. I was like third or fourth in the engineering team, and we were trying to build this super big B2B, not B2B, like a travel platform for booking flights and packages and hotels and stuff. So I joined them, and it was legit. The guy, like, he was really good. Like, he's still a good friend of mine. Like 8-9 years later, he's still a good friend of mine. He was my CTO. He worked in Germany for some time, and he knew how to do things properly. Some big companies, like proper CI/CD, microservices, and like proper SDKs and typing and documentation and stuff. So he, like, it was a completely different thing. Like, it was a completely different world.
Yeah.
Like, they had done everything differently, documentations, workflows, like they were proper sprints and they were proper like stand-ups. It was completely different. My English was not good at that time also, so I came here, I joined them, and I started working with them. He gave me the project. The first project that I got to work on was this flight booking application. This was the one that we were going to go live with. I was working on this. We went live after 2 or 3 months of me joining them, and this taught me a lot about how to do things in a proper manner. The code base was scary. I mean, it was super complicated application. We had third-party API integrations. We were using Amadeus. Amadeus is a platform for booking flights and hotels, this kind of stuff. So I got to work on this. They were building a back office application. So we were supposed to build a back office application where we could see the flights and hotel bookings from people. So people who book orders, we can see them in the back office. A customer support could go and look at that orders, fulfill them, and so on. So this was supposed to be built. So he put me into that because I was fast. I could do things super fast in a really bad way, which was fine with him. He could take it, what I built, and then improve it. So I was doing it like whatever new project or critical project come, he would just give it to me. He would say like, work on this. I would work on them in a bad way. He would give me feedback. I would improve and so on. So that's how I kept on learning at the job with all these different things that I was doing. So I was lucky to have him as a manager because he gave me this opportunity without thinking like how bad my code is and so on. Because it was a startup, he could live with the bad code to prove that the product is working and so on. So the tech stack there was like PHP at that time. So they were built also with Ye at that time, Ye framework, PHP framework.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, so they said that let's do it with. So I convinced them with to do it with Laravel. There was Lumen at that time. I think they had the lighter version of Laravel called Lumen. So I convinced them let's do it with Lumen because I had some experience at my previous company. I said that let's do it with Lumen. So they did Node.js fully. They said that let's do it with PHP because we don't have many people. They don't know much about Node.js, so we'll continue with PHP. And I kept working on this. I got to work on a lot of things. Like I built like 5-6 of the APIs. So it was service-oriented architecture. I got to work on the payment platform, back office, configuration platform, CI/CD server, a lot of internal packages that were used for connecting with the APIs and so on. Off monitoring platform, so we had a lot of internal monitoring things for example to check.
Okay. So let me break some of this down. This is like a Cinderella story, right? You're the kid riding around on your bike, passing out resumes to all the local businesses. Then you're at the big company in Lahore, but you're undercompensated and everything. Then you find this way too good to be true offer from this experienced software engineer. They actually offer you more money than you asked for. And
double,
yeah. I mean, first of all, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a scam, but that often can mean it's a scam. But like, for example, me as a hiring manager, I've often said like, well, you asked for this much, but we can actually give you this much. And I just want to make sure you're comfortable and you can focus. And that can be a motivating thing, especially if people are underestimating the cost of living or something like that, or, anyway, but, you're getting to work on all these different projects. You're getting to work with service-oriented architecture, which is an alternative to monolith development. Instead, you're building a whole lot of individual, APIs and services that interact with one another rather than having just one giant code base. You're getting to work with Laravel, which has since become like this incredibly powerful, widely used web development framework for PHP. So you're getting to use contemporary tools. You're getting exposed to software engineering best practices, emerging best practices, and you're getting to live abroad, improve your English, do all these things. I mean, this sounds like an incredible sequence of opportunities.
Yeah, so I think if I did not have take that offer, I would have still probably be there, and my roadmap might not be there. All these project stars might not be there. So they were using GitHub heavily, and they used to encourage, like the CTO that I had, this person that I had, my friend, he used to encourage that people don't just go home and leave their laptop, go home. Like he used to say that laptop should be a part of your body at that time. so he used to say that. And then I was spending like almost like till 1 a.m. in the office. We were sitting there, we were basically living there. So he was like a family member there. So I used to come home and sleep and used to go to office next day at 9 a.m. in the morning. Which at that time it was fine for me because I was learning. So I said that, I mean, I know it's horrible as a living style and so on, but it was fine because I was learning. And my goal was to learn and improve and get better. Because I was not aiming, I was always looking at the next job. Like, what is the next job that I'm going to have? Is it going to be this one? Am I going to be just living here, working on this project in this company for a long time? Or do I see myself to go somewhere, like become something else? So that's why I decided, like, it was fine, like 9 to 1 a.m. in the morning, that was fine. So we were working on this. There were a lot of challenges. There was a lot of learning. We had like 3 or 4 times we had to migrate the data. There were outages that we had to handle. There were like a lot of mistakes that we did and so on. There was a lot of learning. So I stayed with this company for almost like 3.5 years. I joined them as a software engineer. They promoted to a senior software engineer. Then they promoted me to a lead. So I was a lead, like 21, 22 years lead. And then I had people working under me who were like 35 years, 37 years.
Wow.
So which was also...
you had jumped like several kind of like levels in terms of like seniority. So you were one of those rising stars within the organization.
Yeah, because I was working closely with him. He trusted me. Like all the critical projects, he was giving it to me. So he could trust me. Like when I give him something, he can get it done. So with this trust that I built with him, I was able to grow really faster because he was the CTO. It was a small team, like I said, 20 people, almost 5-6 people in the tech team. So the startup ended up exploding. Like they went super big. Like when I left them, they were like 1,000 people. There were 100 people, 50 people in the tech team. So it got super big from this 20 people to almost like 1,000 people. And with this growth of the company, I was also growing not only in terms of my my skills, also from this side, like the level that I'm working at, my compensation, stuff like that. So I worked with them for 3.5 years. This was probably the biggest stint of my career. Like I kept working with them because I was happy. I did not have any excuse to leave them. Like I was learning a lot.
Yeah. I mean, that is crazy growth. And you got to ride that rocket, like from 20 people to, you said 1,000 people by the time you left?
1,000 people, yeah. Yeah, 1,000 people, yeah.
That's like, I think it's like 5,000% growth.
Yeah. So the reason why they got so big was they had a lot of money. So there was an offline agent, they're super big offline agent called Altair. They used to be called Altair. Now they're called Sira, Sira.sh, so Sira Group. So they were super big, but they were mostly like they were not in the internet. They were offline, making a lot of money from the government and with people and so on. Like people were booking offline booking with them. So they were trying to build this online portal for booking flights, hotels, and packages. And I was lucky to join them, and then they kept investing money into it, and then they were able to use this on their different verticals, and it kept on growing from there because they had a lot of money. I mean, they could just spend money on anything, and then they kept on growing and growing. 150 or 200 people at the time in the tech team. It got super big, and I was growing as well. So I worked on several different teams. I led the back office team, then I moved to architectural team. I worked on the CRM team. So there were different teams. Like every critical project, I was able to get it because, like, I was there, one of the oldest employees, and they could trust me and so on. So my CTO and CEO both at that time they decided to leave the company after 4 years. So they wanted to do something else. I was there. I decided to stay there. I thought that I should be here. Like I have been here. Things are going super well. Maybe nothing will change. But then something happened, and I thought that maybe no, that's not the right place for me. I should leave. So I decided to find another job, and then I moved to a big corporate firm. So they were like 10,000 employees. They were super big, called Altair at that time. So they had like Mamas and Papas, Gap, and like Maserati, and all these big car brands and so on. So they own them in UAE. So I got to work with them on their luxury platform called Unas. So it was also super big, built with Node.js and JavaScript and React on the front end and so on. So I worked with them for almost 8 months. So this CTO and CEO, they got together and they got another funding from from the Dubai government. So the Dubai government, they were trying to build this B2B commerce platform similar to Alibaba, but mainly focusing on Middle East and Africa. So they got the funding for this, and then my CTO, he reached out to me and said that we are doing this. Do you want to come and work with me on this? I thought that maybe what's new there is just the same grind that I had before with them. It's going to be the same thing all over again, like spending 9 to 1 a.m. in the evening there, like working with them and so on. So initially I said no, because I was having a cushy job here. Like I was not doing anything. I was just sitting here. There was like 1 or 2 tasks per sprint.
The laptop wasn't part of your body anymore.
Yeah. so I thought, I'm fine here. I'll not come. Like you're not paying me like almost double of that. There's no money incentive. There's nothing. Why would I come? Learning, I already learned a lot from this company. What else is there to learn? So I'm just doing this all here in this company. So they said that we have learning, we have Dubai funding from the government. It's going to be a lot bigger than our previous company as well. I said, yeah, you have the promise that you know that you don't know for sure that it can get bigger. You just think that it can get bigger, right? So it's a huge risk. And this is like a super big company. They had given me a car. I had a car from this company, and then also they were paying like per month. They used to pay additional fees, additional allowances for you to travel, for example, or for your family and so on. So it was super big. Like they really took care of their employees. So I said no to them, but then I gave it a thought, and I was thinking that if I stay here, like what am I doing? Like I'm just spending like 1 or 2 tickets per sprint. There's nothing. Like in this 8 months, what is the significant contribution that I've done? After I leave the job, in my next job, what would I say? Like what did I do? I was just a small piece in this bigger machine. What is my contribution?
I think you just identified like one of the traps that a lot of developers fall into. I meet developers all the time who've kind of plateaued or stagnated in their career growth, and they're in that position like you. They have like a company car, maybe I've never had a company car, but they've got like all these different things that are like just making them comfortable, and they're good at doing what they do. Their management doesn't know how to do it. It's not easy to replace them. They can just kind of chill there and take it easy. But what happens next? Like their skills are atrophying. Their energy level is atrophying. Their ability to go and learn an entire new framework or an entire new database system or something like that is atrophying with every passing year that they are resting on their laurels. And so it sounds like you identified that this might be what would happen to you if you just got too comfortable.
Yep. And the other thing I thought about, like in the next job, in the resume, in the interview, what would I tell? Like, what is the contribution that I had? Like, what did I do there? I just built some forms, built some APIs, the simple CRUD. What did I do? Like, what was my significant impact? Because there were people sitting there for ages, like 6 years of experience in the same company, 10 years of experience in the same company. So they used to be there. I thought that, can I go up next level? Am I going to be here all my life? Should I do that? Do I want that or no? So I gave it a thought, and I said, no, I don't want that. Then I decided to join this next company, go with them. So they had this challenge of launching this platform within 100 days. If they were able to do it, they will secure the funding, and then they can keep on working with them. If they don't do it, then it's gone. I didn't know that. If I knew that, I would have never left. But lucky for me, we were able to launch the platform in 100 days. We were able to secure the funding and kept on working with the government. And we built this Alibaba competitor in there. I got to learn a lot again, because we did not repeat the same mistakes that we were making in my previous company, but there were different mistakes and different kinds of learnings. There was no product team, there was no design team, there was no QAs. Everything was supposed to go to be built from design to development to launch, and everything was supposed to be done by us, like me, my CTO, and 2 other guys that were there.
Yeah,
so
just go build Alibaba. No big deal. 3 people, 4 people.
So yeah, no, I mean, they promised that. So we decided on the MVP. So what is going to be the initial launch? So initial launch was supposed to be just upload the products. People can search. They could submit a form, and this comes back in the form of simple CRUD, and that's it. The customer support will fulfill the orders and everything. So we launched with this, and then we kept on building. But yeah, I learned a lot from the product side to the design side to the like customer experience side and everything, because again, like I was one of the early employees. We did not repeat the same mistakes, but we did some different mistakes.
Yeah.
And I learned from these mistakes. So I kept working with them. So after 3-4 months, when we got more funding, we started hiring more people. We got like really strong people. Like we got the VP of product who was working at Zalando. Zalando is like super big company in Germany. They have like 3,000 developers. 3,000 developers in total. They are like 5,000-6,000, or maybe more than that, like number of people. So they're super big e-commerce platform. They got her from there. They got some key people from Amazon, from Alibaba, and so on. So I was working with this, and I was there since early days. I had made my name that Kamran is really fast. He can deliver this, and he can develop this, so on. Whatever is there, just give it to him.
So you had a reputation for getting things done.
Yeah. So I was learning also at that time. Then I got some team members. I got 13 people in my team because I was there early. I'm still young, like 20. We're talking about like 24, 25. Not maybe more than that, 25 or 6. I got 13 people that I'm managing at that time. I got more and more people over time. I got to work with all these people and so on. So I was working with them, but then I was fine. I was learning a lot, no issues. But then I thought that Dubai, in the end, I mean, in the long run, there's no benefit. Like if I stay here for 20 years, in the end, I need to go back because there's no way to be permanent there.
Is there no path to citizenship or anything like that?
No, there's nothing there. So I already had spent like 8-9 years. So I started thinking about I should go to Germany. So I decided to go to Germany. Germany, Zalando, this big company that I told you about. I applied there and I got the job there. I joined this company called, they had a product called Zalon. So they had this customer could talk to customer experience and stylist, and they could decide like what could be the fashion that they might suit you. They used to send their picture, and then they would tell them like, put this shirt on, put this pants on, and so on.
So it's kind of like telemedicine for fashion.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So they were trying to decommission this project and build this into Zalando. And this was like, even though this company was super big, 3,000 developers and so on, I had the chance to work on this rebuilding of this platform. I was like an individual contributor, but I was at the same level as the engineering manager. So there was a lot of things to be done here. I had to do the architectural thinking, architectural design, get the buy-in from the different teams, talk to principal engineers, talk to product team, customer support, and so on. So even though I thought that I would not learn much, but I'm not looking at learning now. I'm looking at the future, like naturalization or becoming permanent there.
Yeah.
So I decided to stay there. At that time, now Roadmap was built at my previous company in Tajawal, the one that I told you about. Yeah. Because I was doing a lot of side projects and so on, so I built this roadmap at that time. Repository called Developer Roadmap with 2 roadmaps, front end and back end, 2 visual paths that users could use to get the idea about different landscapes. Now, I was working on this on the side. I was spending like 1 or 2 hours per week on this, and it was organically growing on the side. It grew from like when I launched it in a week, it went to almost like 10,000 stars, and it kept on growing organically. I was not working too much, 2 hours per week. It grew to almost like 150,000 stars in Germany when I was there in Germany. Inside Partners, the company, they reached out to me at that time, and they said that, what are your plans for this? Would you be willing to? Are you looking to acquire, like, for us to acquire this? Are you looking to sell this? Initially, I said no, but then we had long discussion for 6-7 months, and then we decided to end up with the agreement. And then I moved to Dubai back, and I said that I'll join them full time because this is too big of an opportunity. Roadmap is something that I love. I can get to work on this full time. I can do a lot from the product side, from the community side, and so on. So I decided to join them and go back to Dubai, and then kept on working. And from 22 till now, I'm working on this full time.
Okay, so 2022, so we're 2024. So for the past 2 years, you've been working on Roadmap.sh full time.
Full time, yeah.
And you moved back to Dubai. So did you abandon like your goal of getting like EU citizenship, or what?
Yeah.
I guess, is that still something you'd like to do? We'll definitely talk about those are the things. I'm just curious though, because that was why you went to Germany, right?
Yeah. So Germany, I was there. I thought that you know that the grass is greener on the other side. So I was there in Germany. Germany used to look super interesting from the outside, and that there's like all this tech going on, all the cars that you see there from Germany, all the things that you purchase, if it is from German, it's like a stamp of quality, like it's the best thing and so on. But when I was there, like German language was super difficult. I spent there 6-7 months. I didn't see that I will learn German at all. The only thing that I learned in 6 months was Ich bin Kamran. I'm Kamran. So Guten Morgen, Guten Nacht. So all these 3-4 words, and that's it. I don't know any German at all.
Well, one of the challenges is Germans speak such excellent English, just like people from Pakistan and India and a lot of other places. But Germany, they're actually they have one of the best English education systems in the world. Most English teachers will, if you want to teach English as a second language, the German system is usually held up that. Maybe Sweden also has a really good one. But because of that, I imagine pretty much everything you did was in English, right? Were there ever meetings that you went to where everybody was speaking German and you just had to sit there and try to understand, or did they just use English as the business language?
That's the reason why I didn't learn German at all. So everything was in English. I was in Berlin. So Berlin was like a capital of Germany. So everything is there in English. You don't have to even think about learning German at all. And on the side, I had a lot of different things. So I could not spend time on learning German. And so I thought if I continue with the same path, I don't think I'll be learning German. And you need to spend 8 years here. So
you have to spend 8 years to become a German citizen?
Yeah, you get the PR so you spend 3 years, you get the permanent residence. If you know German A1 or A2, which is super easy, you can do A1, A2 easily. But to get to 8, after 8 years, you can get the passport, but you need to be C2.
Okay, so basically C2. Just to give it context, I assume the German language. I know nothing about learning German. I would never learn German just because every German I speak to speaks excellent English. Not the case with the languages that I have been studying, like Japanese, Chinese, Mandarin, and Cantonese, and stuff like that. But if it follows the CEFR, the Common European something framework, if it follows that, then C2 is basically full professional fluency. That's not easy to achieve. That takes people with English. That might take people 3 or 4 years of intensive study to get their English up to level C2. So you were very far from being able to get the full citizenship. I mean, it would have been probably thousands of hours of study to be able to do that. So
yes,
is that the main reason? What about are there any countries in the EU that you could have potentially emigrated to where English was the same? They didn't have these language requirements, for example?
Sweden doesn't need. Sweden, you can get the passport after 5 years. You don't need to learn German. Swedish. So Sweden was the only option, I think. I don't know anything else. But at that time, I knew about Sweden, but I found out about Sweden later when I moved here. But it was super late at that time. So I thought that, is this extra time that I get in the day, should I be spending this on learning German and becoming German, or should I spend this time on learning myself and getting better at things? So getting better or improving myself seemed like a better option than learning German. So I thought I'll go back, and I thought that if you are good at what you do, you can be anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter you are in Germany or Pakistan or India or wherever you are. So that was the thinking that I had. I thought that I'll go back to Dubai and I'll stay there. I'll work from there. So I moved there. Acquisition happened. It was a long discussion. We kept on discussing for almost 6-7 months. I had the acquisition offers before for Roadmap as well. There were 3 or 4 big names. Everyone, if you're a developer, you probably already know about them. There were big names who reached out to me for the acquisition. I didn't do it because of multiple reasons. The first thing was either they were a course platform that they wanted to integrate Roadmap with their platform. Audience was mostly beginners, and they were coming to it because it was a free platform, and I didn't want the product to see as a paywall and then no one can access it because it's now a paid product. This was one thing. The other reason was they either wanted to shut down and they wanted the traffic from it just to get a proper, because Roadmap has a good SEO profile, so they wanted the backlink and stuff. Yeah. So they wanted to build a redirect into their platform. This was the other reason. The third thing was, I was getting a lot of positive messages. Almost every day I get a message from someone thanking me, thank you for building Roadmap. Just last week I got a message from someone. He said that I graduated in 21. Roadmap is the only resource that I followed, and it completely changed my trajectory for the career and finance. So now I have a full-time job and I'm able to support my family and myself because of Roadmap. So thank you for making this. So this is just one example from last week. Imagine if you're getting this kind of messages every week or so. So I was thinking about this, I'm destroying this project just for some money, and I'm already making good money. I don't need any money, right? So why would I sell it? So I decided to just say no to them before. But this time, Inside Partner, this was a bit different. So they are super big. They have $92 billion of assets in their control. They're super big private equity firm in US. So initially I said no, but in the discussions I asked them what their plans are, what my plans are. We had a long discussions. I told them if I was working on this full time, I would do this. What are your plans for this? They said that we want you to come on board and work on this full time and do whatever you want. So they promised me this autonomy and not interfering at all with what I'm going to do. So these seemed really good because at my current job, I was also kind of bored because it was corporate-ish, even though it was this big company. And roadmap was something that I was passionate about. I mean, sometime I would sit and start working on this. I could spend like full day working on this, and I would not feel bored. So this is something I was not bored doing at all. So that's why I thought that this is like a dream come true. So I said yes to them, and I joined full time roadmap.
Yeah.
So this ended up, I think, one of the best decisions in the past 2.5 years that I've been full time on roadmap. It has gone super well. When the acquisition happened, the number of users at that time used to be 150 at that time per month, 150,000. We did not have any registration. We did not have any features for learning and so on. There used to be 4 roadmaps at that time: front end, back end, DevOps, and QA, and that's it. And if I look back now, so today last month we hit almost like 1.25 million users per month. We have more than 1 million registered users, more than 10,000 teams. We have this super complicated roadmap editor for making custom roadmaps. We have this robust infrastructure, and 35,000 I think roadmaps at the moment. So it has grown massively. So it was, I think, the best decision because the product also kept its image of being free and so on. They did not destroy it. They don't interfere at all. So I tell them like what I'm going to work on. They never tell me like this, you should do this next or whatever it is. So the rest is history.
That's awesome. That sounds like a really successful acquisition so far. One of the few positive case studies of a private equity firm, acquiring a company and then that company proceeding to actually get better and do even more stuff. But I think a lot of that is probably because now you have the flexibility to focus full time on it, right? That's been a big part of the past 2 years is you've got this open source superstar, Kamran Ahmed, just dedicating like a whole lot more time and energy because he doesn't have a day job that he has to also juggle, right? So just being a full-time dev, and maybe you can talk, like, I guess what I want to learn more about is you're a full-time open source maintainer now, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're a GitHub Star, which is a big deal. It's an honor that not very many people, maybe a few hundred people have that distinction. We've had a few of them on the podcast here, but I'm adding you to my collection of GitHub stars we've had on, and you're also a Google developer expert. Maybe you can talk about like what day-to-day life is like as an open source maintainer living in Dubai. Dubai. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it. I want to try to pronounce it like it's natively pronounced. Yeah. Which city are you? So you're in Dubai, but which like part of town are you in? Because it's like a giant megalopolis, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
So I was in. I'll say Dubai. Also, I think you said Dubai. So
Dubai. I'll just say Dubai. I don't know what I'm trying to do. I'm not a native Arabic speaker or anything like that, and I'm just going to butcher it. So
okay.
Yeah.
I went to Dubai. I was there for almost a year and a half, and last year and a half ago, I moved to UK. So now I'm based in UK.
You're in the UK now. Okay.
Yeah, so in the back of my mind, I still have that. I mean, even though I have this mindset that you can be good and you can be anywhere in the world and you can stay there, but I knew that you can't be permanently here. You need to, at some point, go out of here, whether it is going to be like somewhere else or back to Pakistan. So I came across, a friend shared with me this global talent visa. So UK has a global talent visa.
Global talent visa. Okay.
So if you have a good open source profile, if you're doing a lot of community work, if you have worked with products before, like product-based companies, and you're good in the IT, then you can apply, and then they can endorse you, and then you can come here. So this is the visa, like the O1 visa, I think, in US. So you have the O1 visa, I think. So it's similar to that,
but it's like Genius visa or something.
Yeah.
Like that. I don't know what they call it, but yeah.
So it's similar to that, but for UK. I had experience with the startups. I had experience with the community work. I had this case study of Roadmap that I was doing it on the side without not expecting anything in return. And I was making this much from it, and all this money that I was making on the side and from Roadmap and so on. So I prepared this profile, and I applied for this visa, and I got this visa. Because UK was English country, no language barrier, so I decided to just say yes, and then I came here. So now I'm based in UK, in Leeds at the moment.
Yeah, just totally unrelated, since I didn't even realize you were in the UK because you've traveled so much. Obviously, Pakistan, like the US, is kind of a former British colony. Like, how much of being in the UK is like you imagine it would be when you were a kid, growing up with this history of being, a former colony of the U.S. again of the U.K. Like, did very much of that culture percolate into Pakistani culture, and like, or is it completely different than you imagine it would be?
No, it was completely different. I mean, I was in Dubai before, and I was also in Germany before. So it is similar to just any other European country. So it's just like Germany, but English. So everything else is same. The only shock that I had was everything closes at 7, 8 p.m. So
Except for the
I was
boat.
used to, yeah. So I was used to in Dubai. I was used to like everything is open till midnight. In the morning, early in the morning, you go at 3 a.m. Everything will open. People are there on the streets and so on. But here it's different. Like winter is also different. Like at 4 p.m. it's night almost in the winter. So these things, like this was a bit of a shock, but not as much. But everything else was mostly same as Germany or what I was used to in Dubai.
Yeah. So how do you like it over there?
It's fine. I mean, sometimes I miss Dubai because of all the flexibility that was there. Like everything is open, the coffee shops and this kind of stuff. But on the other end, I mean, I am fine because I'm looking at the future. I'm planning on settling. I have 2 kids. I have my family here, and I'm planning to settle now because now that I've visited almost all these different countries, lived there, worked there, so I can't keep moving. Like, pack your bags and then go because I'm not single anymore. So that's why it's fine here.
Yeah. I mean, moving your kids while they're doing their early education is generally not a good idea. Like, my parents moved when I was a kid from one city to another, and it was like it completely uprooted me academically and caused all this angst and stuff. So I'm definitely like we chose the place when it came time for my wife and I to have kids, and we're like, we're going to stay here for 15 years essentially. We're just going to live in this place, and we're going to have our kids go through the entire school system alongside their friends. So it sounds like you'd like to do a similar thing out in the UK.
Yep.
So which city specifically in the UK are you in?
In Leeds, it's in the north
Leeds,
almost.
that's right.
Leeds, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was in London sometime. I moved to London. I didn't like it there, but things were super expensive there. Like a normal 1 bedroom was almost like £2,500 per month, which is super expensive. Then I moved to Birmingham. I didn't like it as much. So this is like first 3 months, 2-3 months of moving here. Then I decided to come here. Like this area is really good. Like it's closer to nature, so you can drive for 30 minutes and you see the hills and greenery and stuff. So it's a mix of like greenery and like a developed city.
Yeah, awesome. Well, so are you planning to stay there long term? Like what is your future? And we're going to talk about open source and stuff like that. I know we've been talking about your history. I want to kind of close out the autobiographical section before we get to the nuts and bolts of running open source projects and software development and stuff like that, because you got so much knowledge I want to tap. But like, what are your near-term plans? Like, I guess for the next decade or two, or are you going to try to pursue UK citizenship?
Yeah, for now I'm just planning to settle here for now because my kids, the eldest daughter, she started going to school. I can't just keep moving around, so that's why I got my house here. So now I'm in my house, got everything settled, so permanently here, no more moving around.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. That's like a big life change, and you're pretty young. Like, I mean, you're like compared to me, I'm 43. Like you're maybe 30.
32.
32. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it is remarkable the amount of things you've accomplished in your relatively short career, because you're talking about like, oh yeah, way back in 2013. I was like 2013, 2014. Like that's when freeCodeCamp started. We're almost 10 years old. So like it feels very recent to me, but it represents a substantial chunk of your adult life. Okay. So let's dive in to tap that wonderful developer wisdom. Okay. So you have maintained open source projects. You've got a ton of them, as we've established. I want to learn how somebody should go about first approaching open source. Like freeCodeCamp, we have this repo called How to Contribute to Open Source. We've spent a lot of time. I've spent a lot of time interviewing open source maintainers, but I realize you probably have some unique perspectives, having worked with so many open source projects over the years and created so many. How would you recommend somebody start on the ground floor? They have some basic developer skills, and they want to get that life-changing pull request that teaches them more than their university degree taught them, right? They want to go out there and either... So we can have two different lines of inquiry here. One, contributing to an existing project, and two, we can talk about establishing your own project. Let's start with just contributing to other projects, because you should probably do that first before you try to start your own.
Yeah, first thing is that, before we talk about the contributing, the first thing is knowing the importance of open source. So mostly people think that open source is giving back only, the building things for free and so on. So mostly people think that when you talk about open source, it's just building it for free or giving things away for free. I was doing a lot of open source, like Pennywise. My friend used to say to me that make it paid. So I built another thing. They said that make it paid. So everything I would build, I would put this on the GitHub, because I was learning and so on. So know that open source is not just giving back. You're also getting something back in return. Feedback, product improvements, like learning. You get to learn a lot about communication, for example, or technical writing or marketing side of the things and so on. So think about these benefits also. Now, to start with the contributing, there are two ways. Like either you become a builder or you start contributing. Personally, I like to build own things better than contributing, because contributing, you learn, but you don't learn as much as you could learn from some famous open source project that you're able to develop. But initially, you're not going to build something super famous from the get-go. So I normally recommend that when you're starting with your career, if you have never done any GitHub project before, go on GitHub, find the projects that you can contribute to, projects that are active. So when you see like there are 50 open pull requests or 100 open pull requests, no one is looking at them. The last activity was 4 or 5 months ago and no one is not doing anything. Don't look at such projects. The projects that are active, for example, freeCodeCamp or Roadmap project, go and look at the contribution docs, look at the open issues, and then see what you can solve. And go and, while sticking to the guidelines, open a pull request. They will tell you about like how you can improve. Look at like how they are merging pull requests, how are they responding to the issues and so on. Like look at everything, how they are managing this open source project, and gain some experience from some pull requests. Let's say 10, 15 pull requests. You've done them. Now like start thinking about like what you should develop. Initially in my career, I may have done like 4 or 5 projects, like 4 or 5 contributions pull requests, and then I just started on doing my own projects because I thought that I could learn more from building my own things. So yeah, that would be a way. Like find the projects that are active, submit some pull requests, get some experience, see how they're managing issues, discussion, pull requests, look at the README, how the README looks like, and so on. Then think about the ideas that you can develop and start building those things. Now the next thing is how to come up with the ideas. So I'll tell you like how I came up with my own ideas for my projects. So initially I was a PHP developer, right? Early in my career. So I was always thinking like, what should I build? I'm not sure like what should I build, right? So I used to look at Ruby or Python and different languages. I would look at what are the famous libraries there, or what are the famous classes that are there in PHP or Python or Ruby or different languages. And I would see like if there is something in PHP, in PHP, if there is nothing there, or if there is some abandoned project, I would take the inspiration from that project in Ruby or Python, and I would build the same thing in the PHP. So this is how I came up with the initial projects, like build my own projects in this manner.
Interesting. Okay, so essentially porting projects to a different ecosystem. So that way you already know that there's a demand in this ecosystem. Like in the PHP ecosystem, people are using a library for this. Node.js doesn't have a good enough library for this yet. Let's see if we can just port it. Yeah.
So this is one thing. The second thing is the other way is to look at your own problems. Like at work, for example, what are you trying to do? I'll tell you, like I have a library called Mondex. It's used to apply indexes to MongoDB. So normally how you create indexes is in the Node.js. Either you do it in the Mongoose or whatever ORM you're using, you specify the indexes there, which becomes difficult to maintain. Let's say that you have back office, you have this service and you have this service. So you have, let's say 50 services. Now you have to add the indexes. So you have to do in all these projects one by one. So instead, if you have one place where you could write all these indexes you need, and then you run one command, it would apply all these indexes. So look at your own problems. So this was the problem that I had, and I came up with this Mondex. So write a JSON file, put all the indexes in there, and then run command Mondex apply, and then it would apply the indexes on the database, because this database is connected in the back office, in this service and that service. Or for example, let's say that you have this another open source project that I had. I removed it. I archived it before. Well, let's say that in my first company we were using Laravel. Laravel was not built for building APIs. It had Twig at that time, and it was mainly used for building like templating engine and proper frameworks. For APIs, you need more than just the templating engine. For example, there's API specification for HTTP error. So if there is error happening in an API, how should it be responded with? There should be status, title, description, and the type, and so whatever. So there was no library for this. So I built this for our own use case, and then I decided to open source it with the permission of my company. Similarly, Git stand-up. So we used to have a daily stand-ups. I had a team, so I had 13 people in my team. Now, having the stand-up where I'm like we are spending half an hour or 40 minutes daily standing and discussing like what did you do, what are you working on today, and so on. I know stand-ups are not for this, but still, like we were discussing just this. Like, what did you do? What will you be working on today if you're stuck? So I thought maybe I could automate this. So I built Git Standup, so which was used to just run it on my local machine, Git Standup, give it the author name. It would give me like this person did this commits on the last working day. Now I was using it myself. I thought it could be also open source. I decided to put it on GitHub. Recently I built AWS Cost CLI. So our infrastructure is mostly on AWS. Now on AWS, you need to go into the billing section, look at the how much money are you spending for this month and so on, which could be a bit difficult because you need to have two-factor authentication. You need to look into the service. They don't give you the daily breakdown and so on. I needed something to keep an eye on this, so I thought maybe I should build a CLI application. I could run it in my local AWS Cost CLI, and it would give me either the summary or detailed breakdown for the last for the last day. Like yesterday, you made this one.
Yeah, and then CLI is command line interface. So essentially something where you can just open up a terminal and you can just pull your billing without having to log in. Logging in to AWS, doing all the IAM and using your password manager and maybe having to do multi-factor auth and all that stuff. It takes like 1 or 2 minutes just to go check and see how much you're getting billed. So this sounds like a really useful tool.
So I had decided to automate this. I added the integration for Slack. So you give it the token and you give it the channel. It would send the message daily in the morning on your Slack that you spent this much yesterday, this month you spent this much, yesterday you spent this much, or today is this much so far. So it would send this summary on daily basis. So what my point is that think about like what are the challenges that you have and see how you could solve them. Another project I had was Pennywise. So early in my career, around 2015, I used to watch a lot of talks when I was coding. So I would open up something on the side, like a podcast or something, or a video or something that is running on the side. There were many tools before. There was Helium you could use already to have something on the top. So you could play a video, it stays on the top of all your screens. But there was no way to decrease the opacity. So it doesn't like get in the way. So I decided to build this with Electron. I did not know Electron at that time. I had to learn Electron. I thought it would be a good excuse for me to learn about Electron and then build this desktop application. So now I built this Pennywise. You can decrease the opacity, play it on top of all your screens, and then work on while you're doing this. There are many other projects. All the projects that I have on my GitHub, they have a story behind. Like all of them, they came up in this manner. Design pattern for humans that I'm telling you about. It's funny because informational projects are super easy. You can get easily, like if you're thinking about getting stars, for example, or getting started, build something informational, put it on GitHub. People will help you improve it with the pull requests and so on. But you will also be able to grow massively easily without spending too much effort. Design pattern for humans. When I told you that I was applying for jobs in Germany and so on, I knew that many companies ask for design patterns in the interviews, like what is this design pattern, what is your favorite design pattern, and so on. So I did not know much about design patterns, so I thought that let me prepare myself because this is really good company. I need a job here, so let me prepare myself. So I was preparing my notes. So I thought that how would I learn? So I thought that this design pattern, I don't learn about it because they give you these UML diagrams, like diagrams for the architecture and so on. So they give you the diagrams. They don't tell you in the real world like how it is. For example, let's say that you have a house. You need a door. How would you build a door? Would you bring the wood and cut it, chop it at house and make a door in the house itself, or would you get it built from somewhere else, from some factory, and bring it and fix it at house? So that's what factory pattern is. So I decided to write this design pattern for humans in this manner. So real world example. So what is the Wikipedia definition for this, and what is the programmatic example? So I prepared this project for that. There's also a funny story like how it got famous and so on. We can talk about it if you want, but yeah. So this is how this project came to me.
Tell me the story. I mean, we're an hour and a half into the. I think story time is totally fine. By the way, for those of you still listening, it's totally fine if you don't listen to the whole thing. But we certainly appreciate. So if you're still listening to this point, thumbs up to you. I hope you're learning a tremendous amount from this very seasoned developer / open source project maintainer. And I also want to mention that you can always listen on double speed. You can always download the podcast if you're watching this on YouTube. I strongly recommend listening to the audio version while you're going for a walk, while you're commuting, all those things. That's how I am able to consume so many of these full-length interviews I listen to these kinds of like, multi-hour interviews all the time. It's a big part of my information diet. And I think it's a great way to just passively learn a whole lot of stuff. So pardon this little endorsement of podcasts as a learning resource, but you are absolutely learning a lot of stuff. And I think your time is being very well spent if you're tuning into this conversation. So without further ado, let's jump into story time with Kamran. Tell us the story behind that, how this project blew up.
So that's how I built the design pattern for humans, to learn for myself, put the real world example, Wikipedia description, and the coding example. Now, after I built it, I decided to put it on Hacker News. So I was applying for a company called Trivago. It was in Germany.
Trivago, okay, I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah, you might have seen the ad.
Travel
Hotels
website, right?
Yeah, so you might have seen the ad called Hotels Trivago. So this was the one that they used, the tagline or something. So I was applying here. I knew that, I thought that I really want a job at this company because they're super big. They have a lot of open source projects, and they have a lot of super interesting articles on their engineering blog and so on. So I thought I could learn a lot there. So I really wanted the job. So that's why I decided to practice a lot for design patterns specifically, because the rejections that I was getting before, they were mostly discussing design patterns. So I put it on the GitHub. I had, my interview on Monday morning. Sunday, I finished this preparation. So I had my notes. I thought, I have these. Why don't I just put them on my GitHub instead of just keeping them on my notes directory or somewhere? So I converted it into this markdown format, and then I decided to put it on my GitHub. And after putting it on the GitHub, I posted the link on Hacker News and Reddit and so on. So for some reason, not for some reason, like people started to like it, and then it got to the front page of Hacker News. It stayed on the top for like 6-7 hours. It had, 300 or 400 upvotes there. So it was there. Our interview started, the guy asked me, tell me about yourself. And I got this opportunity to say that I built this and so on. So I gave him all the introduction about my work experience and so on. And then I told him that I also built design pattern for humans. It is trending right now on Hacker News. You could go and see it. He said that it's funny because I was on Hacker News and I saw it just now before coming to the call.
Yeah.
So this happened, and then he did not ask me anything about design patterns, thinking that he's an expert in design patterns because he has this big famous repository on GitHub with this many reports and so on. Which would have not been the case if he had asked me anything. I would have probably not been able to give the answer because this was just the learning material that I prepared for myself. That got that view up. So,
that's so cool. So it's just it's so cool how you were able to essentially avoid having to spend hundreds, thousands of hours memorizing design patterns and preparing for the whiteboard interview by just timing this project going viral on Hacker News for when you would be in the design pattern interview. I'm sure that it just worked out that way, and it was probably as much luck as anything with the timing. But
yeah,
learning in public, putting together this resource, putting it out there, that often will be reciprocated and rewarded by developers out there who see value in things. And
yep.
These websites like Hacker News, which is news.ycombinator.com, Y Combinator, of course, being this famous accelerator that a lot of the people that I've had on this podcast have gone through, for example. That's a great, freeCodeCamp. I've been in a similar situation where I was talking to somebody and they're like, "Oh, what's freeCodeCamp? Is this project going to take off?" And I could be like, "Yeah, look, we're on the front page of Hacker News right now, with this article that I wrote," or something like that, right? And it's always a really cool feeling having something on the front of Hacker News or having something on the front of our programming, the one of the bigger programming subreddits, right? So that's really cool that you put it out there. And so, yeah.
So it was all luck. I was not aiming that it would go. I built it. I thought whenever I was building it. So one thing you should also do is when you build something, don't just leave it. You should tell people as well. Post it on Reddit, post it on Hacker News. So normally people don't post it either because they think you would look stupid because the code base is so bad, or you don't do it because people think that I would look like I'm bragging. So I don't post it, for example. At least I would used to think that. Either my code is bad, it would look like I'm bragging, for example, or just because I didn't want to reply to people or just put myself out there. So this is one of the mistakes that many people do. You should not do that. When you build something, just tell people, put it on Hacker News, Reddit, LinkedIn, Twitter, everywhere.
Absolutely. I'll just say, from my own experience, the universe is indifferent. Most people do not care that if they don't know, if you're not right in front of their eyes, that with them seeing something in a recommendation algorithm feed or something like that, they are never going to stumble upon this project that you put a lot of time into if you don't go out and publicize it. don't wait around for somebody to like magically discover it and submit it to Hacker News or Reddit. Sometimes you just have to like do the slightly immodest thing and do self-promotion. I don't think self-promotion is shameless, as it's often called. I think it's necessary to survive. Like freeCodeCamp would not be where it was, where it is today, if I hadn't been proactive about submitting things to like subreddits and stuff like that, and engaging with people and trying to like, hey, we exist, check us out. You know, you have to do some amount of that to get traction. It's rare that something just randomly gets found on the internet, on the web, where there's so much content. I don't know how many blog posts are being written right now as you and I speak, how many podcasts are being recorded as you and I speak, but there is a deluge of great content, great projects that are worthy of attention, and so few of them are actually going to receive attention. So do everything you can to take that to the audience, right? And posting it on Hacker News is a good way to do that.
And don't worry about the feedback. Like normally, people think that I would get negative feedback, for example. So don't attach yourself with the project. So if someone is giving you feedback, I mean, there are two types of feedback. One is positive. I mean, one is negative feedback that is accompanied with criticism, with some feedback. For example, they would say something negative, but they would say like, "This is what you should do." That's fine, but there's also some negative feedback. It's just saying something negative. For example, when I started my YouTube channel, and I still get some time that about if I speak so fast or I speak in a different manner or whatever. So take it as an opportunity to improve yourself and don't attach yourself with the project. If someone is saying something negative about your project, think that this is feedback that I need to take into my account and then improve it. So you can do that also. So don't take negative feedback always negatively.
Yeah.
The second thing is
skin don't usually make it very far. You have to be able to sift through the feedback to get the kernel of truth or something actionable in that feedback. And a lot of comments are just, negative, like useless comments. Like, but a lot of them, they might seem hostile in tone, but actually have useful insights in them.
Yep.
Yeah. And the second thing you said, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
So that's about the feedback. And what was the second thing? What was I saying? It was about feedback, or what is it?
You were about to say the second thing is.
Okay. Anyways, I mean, the second thing is don't just stop building things because something exists already. Design patterns. I'm not the one who came up with the idea for design pattern, right? There's so many books already, so many blog posts already. Even some negative feedback that I got on the design pattern for humans was, why are you calling it for humans? Do you think that nothing came before which was written for humans? So is it something extraordinary that you have written or so on? So I mean, if you get such kind of feedback, that's fine also. Don't do it because something is already there. Build thing, leave it, put it out there. I mean, you always can put your own thoughts into it. Everything is a remix of something, like it's a mixture of something. You can put your own perspective and then still write. That blog post you want to write it. That open source project, just because something is there, don't just stop. Build it. You'll get the experience and so on. And you're doing it for yourself. You may not be doing it for someone else as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think that a lot of people are, like, everything has been done before, in theory, right? Yep. There might be some things that haven't been done ever. You might find some novel problem or some novel topic that nobody has ever written about before, but realistically, you're going to be retreading previously trodden ground, but you're going to be doing it with your own insight, your own perspective, and your own spin on it that's going to improve it and make it more resonant with people for which the previous iterations were not resonant. So, yeah, 100%. Don't be daunted. I want to close with a few very quick questions about Roadmap. Just because I'm really interested in the project. Of course, I'm somebody who has written about it before, shared the roadmaps on Twitter and like everything like that because I think they're useful. What are the most popular roadmaps? I think you've got quite a few on there, both for learning specific skills like JavaScript ecosystem roadmap and for disciplines like front-end developer roadmap. Yeah. Which ones are generally the most, like when you look at the analytics and stuff, which ones are the most popular?
So normally, I mean, that you would expect front-end, back-end, DevOps. These are the three top, like most famous ones. AI also is one of the famous ones. So these three, I think, would contribute to the most of the traffic that we have.
AI?
Others are also picking up, but these three, front-end, back-end, DevOps, and AI.
Okay. Well, what is AI?
AI. Artificial intelligence.
I'm sorry, I misheard you. Yeah, I can see why that'd be popular. Okay, the second question I have is, how do most people approach these roadmaps in your experience? Like, give me a typical user persona, somebody who's coming to Roadmap.sh. Like how do they interact with it? What do they usually do?
So there are three types of people who visit the website. The one is the beginners. So let's say that you don't know anything about, let's say that you are a front-end developer, you're trying to get into the back-end development, you don't know anything about the back-end development, so you would come and try to see like how does the landscape look like, and they would take the beginner version. So these famous roadmaps, all of them have a beginner version as well. So they would take the beginner version and then they start learning from that. So this is the beginners. The second is the intermediate, who have some experience, but they don't know like if they know or they don't know. So they use it, they come and then they see like they would look at the senior version of the roadmap, and they would look at like what they need, what they don't know, or what they should be learning to scale up. And the third thing is senior. So seniors, they come normally because we keep roadmaps up to date. So every year, around every 6 months, we go through all of our roadmaps again, and we revise them. We make sure that nothing is outdated. We have them up to date. Any outdated content is not there, and so on. Right now, we're also doing it. We have 55. We have went through 32 at the moment, and we are still going through the rest of them. So they come here. The seniors come here to see like what changed this year, or what is coming next, and so on. So these are the three technical audiences: beginner, intermediate, and senior, to scale up. The other audience is recruiters. They come to look at the landscape, like what kind of jobs, skills are there, and so on. So these are the recruiters. Product managers also come. So they just come to look at the rough overview, just to build some understanding of the landscape. Like if someone says API, they need to know like what is API. And because our roadmap topics, when you click a topic, we tell you like a short summary of what this topic is about. They use it for that understanding. So these are the three types of audiences that we have.
Yeah, awesome. And you link to mostly external resources like Tech Talks, books, online courses. Like if you had to break down the different resources you're linking out to, like what are generally the most represented of like different sites and resources among those resources?
So it's actually a mix. We don't have any specific resource that we are linking a lot. So we are actually going through all these resources at the moment to revisit them. So right now, for example, yesterday I was going through the front-end roadmap, so we are going to do that. We might be linking to a lot of, because we free videos that you have on freeCodeCamp as well on YouTube channel, because normally like whenever you search, you come up, you're the first to come up in the list. So yeah, but at the moment there's no one resource that we have. It's like a mix of everything. For example, today we linked to one resource. Dan, our developer advocate, he shared a link with me. This channel had only one subscriber, and Dan was the second subscriber, so we have a link to him because his video was good. So we don't look at any criteria like either they're famous or not. If the content is good, we just link to it. It's a mix of books, crash courses, videos, articles, so a mix of everything.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We need to focus on that a lot. So so previously our focus has been mostly on adding roadmaps, but now we are also thinking about like adding more resources and going through them all, because now that we have built up a lot of functionality that we needed, a lot of resources that we needed to add, now we need to add the resources to the roadmaps. So that's what we are doing at the moment.
Awesome. Well, man, I've asked you like a lot of questions, but there are still so many things I'd like to learn from you. You have so much experience working at so many different companies in so many different countries, and also starting so many different projects. Like I never even thought about a project where I could like have a YouTube interface or something where I can decrease the opacity so I could watch YouTube videos while I'm doing other stuff. That just didn't even occur to me. So I love kind of like that you have these quirky, I don't mean that in a pejorative way, but like distinct, unique kind of like needs, and that you can't find tools to address those specific needs. And you're like, I'm going to build it. I am a dev. I have the skills. I can just sit down and build something and do it. And that is absolutely how I feel in my day-to-day experience when I need something that doesn't exist yet. I'm going to build it, right? I'll just scrape together some scripts and I'll have something that handles this thing. And that's one of the reasons I advocate that everybody go out and learn basic programming skills. I think it's going to be incredibly useful to have these skills regardless of what you're doing, whether you're a physician, whether you're an accountant, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're just a mechanic and you run like a small car shop or something like that. You never know when you could write some integration that like auto refills your inventory or something like that, right? So I think it's amazing that you're going out and you're putting all this content out there to help beginners and intermediates and advanced people and recruiters. I think this is a really cool use case that you brought up. The fact that recruiters they need to know what skills, like how skills are related to one another. And you've built these great visual, essentially like schematics of these careers that recruiters can use to understand what is a typical, skill set of a DevOps. What are related skills? Like people might be learning like Kubernetes, but they might also be learning like Ansible and like where are there tools that are essentially mutually like they can be swapped out for one another? Because a lot of people like joke that like the typical job developer or like the developer job posting will say you must know Java and Spring and you need to know PHP and Laravel or something like that, right? But like, if you know how to do one of those, you can do the same things you can do as the other. Just like your example of, they wanted you to know C# and .NET and build an app at your first job. And you're like, but I actually already know comparable tools. So that's one of the things I like about your developer roadmaps is they do have a little bit of give if people want to customize the learning experience. If they're more enamored with a particular tool ecosystem than another, it's like you can learn this or this, and that's something that a lot of beginners don't know. They don't know that they don't need to learn like every single programming language under the sun, that they don't need to learn like redundant frameworks, like that if they already know Java Spring, they don't necessarily need to learn, C# .NET, for example. So that's one of the great things about Roadmap that I think has been a huge gift to the developer community. I asked you earlier what... I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I would add to that. So early in my career, I still consider myself a self-taught developer. Mm-hmm. I told you that I was learning a lot of different things, right? I learned about HTML, CSS, JavaScript, game development, Photoshop, Unity 3D, and so on. I was doing all of this because I didn't know, like, if I pick up backend development, there's still a lot of things to learn in the backend. I would jump to something else because I didn't know. So Roadmap came into being because of that pain point also that I had myself. Like, as a self-taught developer that most of the people are these days, what do you need? So roadmaps provide this also, like the path for those people.
Yeah. And with freeCodeCamp, like the reason why our core curriculum, not all the extracurricular courses that we publish on YouTube, we'll publish courses on pretty much any tool. And we're very excited we have a COBOL course, for example, right? We've got courses on other topics too. We just published a DaVinci Resolve course for people that want to learn how to do professional video editing or just make their own videos better. Using this powerful free tool, DaVinci Resolve, that the paid tier, is used for like the Avatar movies. That's what they use it at the very top of the Hollywood ecosystem. You can have that power, but you need to know how to use the tool. So we'll publish tutorials on that. But like the actual freeCodeCamp core curriculum is linear and it's incredibly opinionated. And we're just like, we think based on our understanding of talking to a whole bunch of hiring managers, a whole bunch of things, if you just want a one size fits all monolithic curriculum, then go through the freeCodeCamp curriculum. But that is, different strokes for different folks. There is no one size fits all solution. This is just our opinion of what the shortest path is to being able to work as a developer. What I love about Roadmap is you offer so many different alternative paths, and people can kind of mix and match different tools and resources, and that's one of the most powerful things about it.
Yeah, so we do have some opinionated things also in there. So for example, if you look at the front-end roadmap, there might be in the front-end framework React, Angular, Vue, and whatever, Svelte, Solid, Quick, whatever. So there would be a purple mark against a certain thing. So for example, we recommend that go with React, but you can also look at these different options. So that's also there. So we're not binding you to do this, but we just tell you like there are also the other options.
Yeah, and a lot of people just love customizing things. They love customizing their education like they would love, retrofitting their car with like, non-manufacturer, non-OEM parts, non-stock parts, right? Custom parts. I'm sorry, I'm struggling. I don't know anything about car modification. I'm just trying to come up with an example. But like people approach their education the same way. They're like, yeah, everybody's reading John Duckett's HTML book, but I'm going to read, O'Reilly head first into HTML. Or so like little ways that they can express themselves through customization and things like that. And so I love that you have kind of like the recommended, but here are also some if you want to be a little bit like more rogue in your approach to developing. Yeah, and you want to brew your own education. That's cool. All right. Well, Kamran, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you for like nearly 2 hours and like learning from you. Before this, you and I hadn't talked synchronously. We just corresponded a lot through like Twitter messages and stuff. It sounds like I've been a long-time admirer of yours, so I've been admiring you from afar, but it's cool to be able to admire you in real time and also to thank you for your big open source contributions, for everything you've done that you put out there to make the world a better, more open, freer place, in the sense that, like, free access to information. One of the core beliefs of mine is that information wants to be free, education wants to be free, and there are people that talk about that, and then there are the people out there that are walking it, that are living it, putting these projects up.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been the huge admirer of FreeCodeCamp as well. Like, whenever someone mentions Roadmap, normally, like, I see, because I have alerts for Roadmap.sh, I keep an eye on the feedback and so on. FreeCodeCamp is always there. Like, Roadmap and FreeCodeCamp, they're always there together. So, I mean, yeah, you're also putting a lot of free content in there. I mean, we are giving the path, but you have the actual content in there. And having it there for free and a lot of quality, like your YouTube channel, for example, you have these like 10 hours of free courses on AWS. Like, all the free content that you're putting, I mean, yeah, it's been massive. Like, I see myself recommending it all the time. So, yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. Everyone listening, be sure to check the show notes for lots more resources, including a link to Roadmap.sh, so you can see some of these diagrams yourself, some of these roadmaps, and to some of the other projects we've talked about, including FreeCodeCamp's How to Contribute to Open Source project, which we're very proud of, which will kind of give you an on-ramp if you want to get involved in contributing to Roadmap or to FreeCodeCamp. Both projects have extensive contributor documentation that you can use. Man, it's just such a pleasure, such an honor to talk to you.
Likewise.
Yeah. Well, until next week, everybody, happy coding.